Hello everyone and welcome back to HTML for Absolute Beginners. This video is the second video in the series, so if you have not yet watched part 1, then please go ahead and do that, which I will link in the description of this video for you. Today we are going to pick up from where we left off last time, and you guys are going to learn all the rest of the basics that you are going to need to know in order to get started with HTML. So I hope you guys are super excited to take the next steps in your journeys as web developers, and let's get started with part 2 right now. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to make a new folder on the desktop called HTML underscore basics underscore 2, and I will open it with VS Code just like that. Exit this stuff and make a new file, index.html. Any second now, there it is, and let's do the exclamation mark tab. That doesn't always work. Let's try it again. Nope. It'll work eventually. It's just a little bit confused right now. Nope. And it's definitely, there we go, and I'm gonna call this HTML basics 2, and let's just do a little bit of a quick recap from last week, guys. So if you'll remember, we went over H1s, which is the biggest heading. Let's call this our website. That is our biggest heading. Let's make a paragraph tag with lorem 40, and let's do an anchor tag that goes to YouTube. Just like that. Let's open it up with live server. Let's go to YouTube. Brilliant. Let's go to unsplash.com. Let's search for peanut. Let's take these guys, copy the image address. Let's make an image tag. Copy that, save. Alt, peanut pick. Let's check it out. There we go. Right, so that is all the stuff that we covered last time, guys. Headings, paragraphs, anchor tags, and image tags, as well as attributes for the HTML tags. So if you'll remember, the A tag has the href attribute, which points to the URL of whatever website that you need your link to go to. And the image tag has an src attribute, which points to the location of the image file. Great, so let's get started going over HTML lists. So in HTML, we have lists, and they are exactly just that. They are lists of items, and we have two different kinds of lists in HTML. We have unordered lists and ordered lists. And this is also very self-explanatory. The unordered list does not have a particular order, and the tag that we use for an unordered list is a UL tag. Then inside there, we will have LI tags to represent a singular list item. And you can see that the output of an unordered list will be as such. There will be the thing, another thing, and yet another thing without any kind of numbers or particular orders. Whereas an ordered list will indeed have a particular order with particular numbers attached to each list item. So you can see that the output of the ordered list, which we represent with the OL tag, is displayed as such. We have 1, thing 1, 2, thing 2, 3, thing 3, etc. And I can tell you that usually we do not use ordered lists nearly as much as we use unordered lists. And this is because we use unordered lists in our navigation menus in our websites. So for your navbar, you will have an unordered list with list items with anchor tags inside those list items, which will point to the various places in your website. So let's go ahead and look at lists in practice. Cool, so back over in our code, before we start doing some lists, I just want to explain how you can make a comment in your HTML file. So in order to make a comment, you can just write basically whatever you want to reference your code, such as HTML lists, highlight that selection, and Control/. And you can see that it has added some brackets and dashes and an exclamation mark. So this is the syntax for creating a comment in HTML. So that is our comment, and under that I will make a UL, so that is an unordered list. Then I will make an LI tag, and let me show you something else here. If you hold down Shift, Alt, and down, and you push the down button, you can copy your HTML elements down just like that. So that is a very handy shortcut in VS Code. So let's just say inside these list items, thing 1, thing 2, and thing 3, and let's just make a thing 4 because you know. So if we have a look at our list, you can see right here we've got thing 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have bullet points for each one with no particular order because it is an unordered list. And of course we haven't gone through any kind of CSS yet, but I do have to mention that you can put a style attribute and you can change something that is called the list style. So if I change this list style to none, you can see that the bullet points will go away. And this is basically one of the things we use to style our navigation menus and the items within our navigation menus. And I can also mention that you can change the list style to, say, a circle. That'll make them little circles. Let's try a square. That'll make them little squares, but you usually don't really want to do that because it looks quite ugly, and normally you'll just make the list style none and then continue to style your navigation bar any way that you want. So that's an unordered list. Let's make an ordered list just to show you. So let's make our LIs, and remember it's Shift, Alt, and down to copy them down, but your cursor has to be right here at the end of the line. So Shift, Alt, and down. 1, 2, 3, there we go. So let's just copy, you know what, I'll just copy all of these because that's a lot easier. So let's have a look at our ordered list, and you can see that our ordered list has numbers for each thing. So thing 1 is 1, thing 2 is 2, etc. And another thing that you can do with lists is nest lists inside of each other. So it's basically listception. So inside this list item, I'll make another UL, so another unordered list and another list item in there, and let's call this thing 11. Who knows? So let's take a look, and you can see that this list item is being nested within that one. So if we copy that down a couple times, have a look. Just like that, and you can keep going forever. And you'll probably go completely insane. Just like that. Cool. So that is lists, and let's start going over tables right now. Cool. So tables in HTML are exactly that. They are tables meant to represent various pieces of data in a table format, and they can be a little bit strange to get your head around at first, just in terms of how the markup is and how that represents into the actual table itself. So if you look over here, the table essentially consists of two parts. two main parts, and that is the table head and the table body, which is represented with a t-head and t-body tag. So you can see inside this t-head tag, we've got a tr, and that stands for table row. And inside the table row, we're going to have our table headings, which are represented by th tags. So this is our first table heading, name, and this is our second table heading, age. Now, in the table body is where we have our actual data, of course. So we have another tr for a table row. So this is simply a table with two rows, right? One row, two rows. So in this row, we've got John, which is represented by a TD tag. Now, TD is for table data. So TH is for table head, and TD is for table data. So you can see for the name heading, we have the property of John. And for the age heading, we have 43. Just like that. So let's go ahead and look at some tables in practice. Cool, so let's just go ahead and make a basic table. So I'll just make a comment here, HTML tables. Remember, select and control / for a comment. So the way we start a table is with a table tag. And let's start with the table headings. So I'll just make a very basic table with some people with some information for them. So we've got the T head tag. Then inside that we'll have a table row tag. Then we will have a TH tag for the table heading. And the first one will be name. Then remember Shift Alt down. Let's just put age and email. So those should be our table headings. So if we have a look here, we just see our headings over here. So name, age, and email, just like that. So underneath the table head, let's make our table body. So that is T body. Then another table row, so TR. Then we use the TD for the table data. So name is Jonathan Smithers. His age is going to be 55. And his email is going to be jonathan@gmail.com. And let's just make one more person over here. So let's make this Sally. She's 35. And Sally@gmail.com. So let's have a look. And here is our table. Of course, again, we don't have any CSS, so it looks absolutely awful. But that is a great start to how tables work in HTML. And just to show you that it is possible in CSS, I've just added a couple of inline style tags, which by the way is not a great idea. You usually want to have a separate file with all your CSS inside there, and then link it into your HTML file, but we'll get to that in the CSS course. But I just wanted to show you that you can add borders to your tables. Cool, so that is HTML tables, and they are fairly simple and straightforward, but like I said, just a little bit strange to get your head around the structure with the TRs and the THs and all of that stuff. But like I said, in general, table head and a table body with the headings and data, and you should be able to figure that out on your own. So the next kind of HTML element that I would like to go over with you guys are HTML forms. And HTML forms are a little bit different to the other things that we've gone over because there is quite a little bit more to them. So I think the best way to teach you guys forms is to basically just build out a form with all the basic inputs and just kind of explain what's going on as I go. So I'll just make a comment over here, says HTML caps forms. And the way that we make a form is with a form tag. So we just say form. And now you can notice that Emmet, the extension that I previously mentioned, the auto completion extension, it adds this action attribute automatically. Now, normally your forms in your HTML, all the information inside the form, all the input information, all the values, all that data would need to be essentially sent through a server, probably using a programming language such as PHP. And normally you would put here a pointer to that file. So you would say something like process.php, then that file would contain all the necessary logic to send through the data of your form to where you need it to go. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I will just build out a basic form and explain as I go along. So the way that I usually like to make forms is thus, and I'm going to use a couple things that we haven't explained just yet, like classes and IDs, but that's alright because I'll explain all of that in a little bit. So I usually make a form-group class, and we will also go over divs in just a little bit. Then inside there we'll have a label tag, and you can notice this for attribute. So the label has a for attribute, and inside there you just need to put what the label is for. So this label will be for a name input, so I'll just say name. Then underneath that, I'll make an input tag, and notice that Emmet automatically generates the type of text for this input. And that is exactly what we want because we want the name, right? Now the next thing we need to add to the input, the next attribute I should say, is the placeholder attribute. And that is going to be the grayed out text inside the input that is going to tell us what we should do inside this input. So for this placeholder, I will just say, enter your name, just like that. Also, what we will usually do on inputs is have a value attribute. And the value attribute is very important for when you want to send the actual form data through to a server. But like I said, we will not worry about that just yet in this tutorial, but I'll just say the value for this input is also name. Then I'll copy this form group and I'll make another one. And this one, the label is going to be for the email input. The type is also going to be an email, and the placeholder will be enter your email, and the value will also be email. Let's make one more, and this is going to be an age value, and the type of the age is a number, and the placeholder will be enter your age, and the value is age, just like that. So let's take a little look at our form over here. Again, no styling, doesn't look great, but you can see the placeholders over here. So enter your name, Peter, enter your email, peter@gmail.com, enter your age, 45. And you can see we have this little number checker over here, and that is because we specified that this input should be specifically of type number, and this input over here should specifically be of type email. So if we don't include a valid email in here, this form will not submit correctly. So let's do a couple more input types. I'll make another form group over here, and we're going to make an input that has the type of radio. And you can notice that when I type a colon after the input, just like this, and I say radio, Emmet will automatically generate an input with a type of radio for me. So let's give this radio input a name of gender. Then I'll also give this one a name of gender, and the IDs for both will also be gender. And the way that we determine what the value is for each radio input is with the value attribute. So the value for this gender input is going to be male. So value equals male. And the value for this one will be female. Let's also make a label for our gender selection. So the label is for gender. Then in order to put actual labels for the radio buttons, you literally just put it right after the tag. So over here, I'll just say male like that, and female over here just like that. And let's have a look. So we have our two radio options here. We can choose male or female. Great. And the next input type, I'll make another form group. And the next input type is going to be a text area. And Emmet will generate the attributes necessary that we need. So we've got the name, we could call that message. ID can be message. And you can also determine the amount of rows and columns that you want in your text area. So you can see our text area right over here, and we can type in a message. So hello, please send info. And that text area will generate that text for you and send it through with your form when it is submitted. And the way that we submit a form is by using a submit button. So underneath this last form group, I'll make a button tag, and this button is going to have a type equal to submit. So that tells the HTML that when this button is clicked, this particular form needs to be submitted with all the values provided in the form. So inside the button tag, you can just say submit. Just like that. And you can see our submit button right over here. So the next thing that I would like to go over with you guys are block, and inline elements. So HTML elements can have different kind of display properties, and a lot of default HTML elements are default block, and a lot of them are default inline. And these properties can be changed through your CSS, but like I said, we will get to that in the CSS course. But for now, I just want to briefly explain the difference between block and inline elements. So in order to illustrate this properly for you guys, I'm just going to make a couple tags here. I'll make a h2 that says, hello guys. And I'll make a paragraph here with lorem 20. Now, to give you guys an example of an inline element, I'm going to be explaining a span to you. So it's a span tag, just like that. And a span is essentially a tag that you will put inside of other content in order to create basically a smaller division so that you can put different kind of content within that span. So let me cut this stuff out and put it inside the span, and I'll give this a color of yellow. And let's take a look. And you can see that just that little bit has become yellow. And this is a perfect example of an inline element. So the block level element takes up the entire width of the screen, and the inline element can be used basically within other elements in order to create the desired effect. Another example of an inline element would be an anchor tag. So let's put an anchor tag right over here that goes to Google, and let's just take a look. So you can see over here, the inline element has just been added to our paragraph element. And whereas a block level element would have been pushed down to the line below, the inline element stays within the previous element. So I really hope that makes sense, guys. So the next thing we're going to go over are divs, classes, and IDs in HTML. So divs are very important in web pages. It's basically just an element, an HTML element or tag that is used when you want to divide up your content. Hence the name div. It's short for division. So it's dividing up the different sections of your web page. So if I have a div here and I put like a h4, and let's say this is like the contact section, we can say contact us. Then what we would want to do is give this div an ID equal to contact, right? And the reason for this is that we need these IDs to tell us what the different sections of our web pages are. So classes as well as IDs are both used to separate our content and also to style our content using CSS selectors. So I'll make another div over here, and let's give this one an ID of header, and it can also have an h4 that says header. And you can see now how we can differentiate between these two header and contact sections. Now, to explain classes, just briefly, I'll make a div inside this header with a paragraph with lorem 5. And let's also have an anchor tag that just goes to YouTube. Now I'm going to give this div a class, and the class is going to be called content. And of course you can call your classes basically anything that you want, but when you are naming your classes, try to call it something that pertains to the section or the part of your web page that you are currently working on. So this content class can now be used for this specific area of content. Now, to explain this a little bit better, I'm going to make a style tag just at the bottom here. And inside this style tag, this is CSS by the way, so if you don't know what this is, it's alright, but it's just something that I'm showing you in order to explain this class concept a little bit better. So inside our style tag, I'll target the content class, and I'll give it a background color of blue, and I'll give it a color of yellow. So what this basically means is that every element on your web page that has a class of content will have these attributes, right? So if I copy this down again, and let's just add some more stuff in here. So let's make this one a little bit longer. Let's try and make that work. And let's just have a look at this. So check this out. Before we do anything else, these links are just barely visible. So what I'll also do is give both of these A tags, and here's another pro tip, after this selector, I can hold Alt and click on this one. Then they are both selected for me. So if I say space class equals bottom links, then in my CSS I could target the bottom links class just like that, and I will change the color to purple, and I will set the text decoration to none. Should get rid of the underlines. So as you can see, well, no, you can't really see that, so let's rather make them red. And you can see that our classes are being applied to these divs over here that have the class of content. So what is the difference between an ID and a class? Well, essentially, IDs should primarily be used for when you want to have a section of your web page that is unique. And classes you will want to use when you will have multiple sections on your web page that you will need to apply specific rules to. So a great example of that is right over here with these content classes. So that is classes and IDs. So the final thing that I would like to go over with you guys today are HTML5 semantic tags. And these are essentially just HTML tags that are fairly new, that instead of just having a div, for example, we can add these semantic tags in order to give our tags or elements more meaning in our web pages. And these are very important for the browser to render our page and know more about our specific elements, and it's very important for the web page to display the correct content for people with disabilities, and it's also just a lot easier to lay out your web page using these tags. So back over in our code, let's see what semantic tags we can use in order to make our content more meaningful. So these divs over here, you can see this is a contact div. Now, a contact section would normally probably be in a footer tag. So let's change this div tag. And one last final pro tip, if I highlight this div over here and I say Control D, it will automatically select the next div tag for me. So I will say backspace and let's make this a footer tag, just like that. Now the header tag, I'm sure you can guess this one, guys. Let's do our selection of this div over here and the final one down here as well. And let's make this a header tag. And finally, for these divs inside here, now you can see that these are essentially sub divs of the header tag. So these could be seen as sections. So I'll change this one to a section tag. And perhaps this one could be like an article or something like that. So I'll go ahead and change this one to an aside tag. Just like that. Alright guys, so you have officially completed the Deal Development HTML for Absolute Beginners course. So congratulations, you guys did an excellent job. I really hope that you learned a whole lot, and I will see you next time where we start our CSS course. Thanks so much for watching guys, and please subscribe to Deal Development so you will get notified when that next course drops. Thanks so much guys. Bye bye.